There are few more gruelling sporting examinations than cycling's Tour de France. 23 days, 3,500 kilometres. Every pedal stroke a challenge of mind and body. A brutal test of a man's physical and mental fortitude. Cadel Evans is well used to being pushed to the limit and beyond. His life's been that way for almost 2 decades. First as a teenage mountain biking prodigy, then as one of the world's premier road cyclists. No other man has ever been ranked world #1 in both disciplines. But it has been a long, winding and often painful road to get to the top of those mountains. And his journey still continues. Cadel's story, an Aussies Abroad special, starts now. As an only child in a remote area of Australia's Northern Territory, Cadel Evans spends his early years miles from his nearest neighbours and therefore needing to make his own fun to while away the time. His bike is therefore much more than a plaything. It is a portal to a world of adventure and freedom.
Certainly independence and freedom as a youngster, that was the only way I had it, and growing up in life it still gave me that independence and freedom, and now it still does today, even though it's my profession.
He would just disappear. He would just jump on his bike and just take off. It was always really difficult because he would disappear and you'd never know which direction he went, so the dog would always follow him, so I'd just call the dog, and wherever the dog came from, that's where I'd go looking for him. He did have to make his own fun, he did have to entertain himself, and so yeah, he was always quite independent, and the bike was part of that.
Cadel and Helen relocate to country New South Wales with the family horses. Cadel suffering a freak accident at the age of 8 that leaves his life hanging in the balance.
It was just one of the foals I got in the way when it was a little bit excited. I was just bringing it in to get fed, and it got a bit excited, and it literally clipped me on the ear with its hoof, and but being 8 years old, it didn't resist it.
Cadel's skull has been crushed by the impact of the kick, a piece of his skull impinging on his brain. Unconscious and struggling to breathe, he's rushed to Newcastle via Medivac helicopter as the paramedics work feverishly to save his life. He undergoes emergency surgery 2 days later, doctors fearing the worst.
It was terrifying. He was in a coma. The best prognosis at that time was that he would be paralysed down one side, but they didn't really know what the outcome would be, and it was a very difficult time.
Cadel awakes after more than a week in a coma and begins his slow recovery to health. He will need to wear a helmet to protect his damaged skull as he works to regain his balance and his strength over the next 6 to 12 months.
I'm really lucky to be here today because it was just one of those little freak accidents that happens, and really fortunate to survive it. I had such muscle degeneration from being still for so long that I had no muscular strength, no fitness. I used to go shopping. I used to get a stitch just walking down to the shops.
But over time, Cadel regains full health and enjoys a normal life as an energetic youngster. He and his mother moved to the outer northeastern suburbs of Melbourne. Cadel reconnecting with riding as he spends hour upon hour riding his bike around the local hills, becoming interested in a new emerging sport called mountain biking.
Sometimes I look back at it and think, if my father didn't buy me a mountain bike at age 14, what would I be doing with my life today?
He was pretty good, so that became more and more what we did on the weekends, was going to bike races and him training a lot, and it sort of turned more into a discipline than freedom, I think.
Just being out there in the forest, the aspects of it, doing downhills, and the whole freedom and independence thing just appealed to me again.
Cadel seeks out races in the local area, jumps on his bike, rides to the race, competes, then rides home again. He's ideally suited to the sport. Compact and lightweight, yet powerful and gifted with an extraordinary aerobic capacity that allows him to maintain maximum effort long after his competitors have begun gasping for breath. However, his rapid rise through the Australian junior ranks to win the 1993 National Cross Country title is not based on natural gifts alone.
Everything was just geared around, well, what do I have to do to be a professional cyclist or a professional mountain biker particularly? What do I have to do it? I'm going to do it, and yeah, that I gave up nearly everything. I sometimes wonder what my school friends and things thought of me. Some had asked me, come out and do this and have a party or whatever. Oh no, I've got to get up early, meet the group to go riding, or I'm going to a race or travelling away for the weekend. My life it seemed to be school, training and sleeping. I came about into mountain biking at a good time. It just became introduced to the Olympics at age 19. I went to Atlanta Olympics, and look at this. 5 years before, I was competing in my very first mountain bike race in a real small club level. Then all of a sudden I'm in the debut in the Olympic Games. Mountain biking had a real big growth spurt.
And Cadel is at its forefront. The young Aussie, a rising star in the fledgling sport, winning national titles and world championship medals on his way to the 1998 and 99 World Cup titles. His time in the AIS program is also exposing him to road cycling. Cadel cross-training with the road cycling squad and showing a natural aptitude for this form of the sport as well.
I enjoyed racing on the road. I was a big fan of the Tour de France. I used to watch the Tour de France on TV and follow the road racing, and some of the road riders. The team thing also was appealing to me after all the years of being mountain biking. It's you get out of what you put in, but also you're sort of on your own a lot. Because I was racing on the road a lot for training, when I came to make the transition to become a road rider in 2001, 2002, it came a little bit quicker than it did for other mountain bikers.
Ahead on Aussies Abroad, Cadel Evans. After 8 successful years as one of the world's finest mountain bikers, it's time for a new challenge. But Cadel's about to find out just how brutal Grand Tour cycling can be.
I'd never been in a state of fatigue like that, and I didn't know if my body was completely exhausted. When I hit the wall, blew up, and it was not an experience I'd want to wish upon anyone. It really was horrible.
A two-time World Cup mountain biking champion, 24-year-old Aussie Cadel Evans has decided to switch gears and pursue a new career in road cycling. His first Grand Tour is the 2002 Giro d'Italia. Cadel arriving at the Tour as a domestique, a support rider for the powerful Mappe team and its lead rider Stefano Garzelli. But when Garzelli is disqualified for a positive drug test just 6 stages in, Mappe needs a new lead rider. Suddenly, the young Aussie, riding in his first ever 3-week event, is thrust into the spotlight.
Look at Cadel Evans. He is not going to lay down arms, Phil. This young man, he wants to become the first Australian ever to win this bike race.
He moves into the race lead a couple of days later and holds the coveted pink jersey, entering the Italian Classic's final major climb. A scenario unheard of in the world of professional cycling.
A 2-hour race to a 3-week race, it's a big change physiologically to make, and a change normally you want to allow your body 4 or 5 years to do. 4 or 5 months I had to turn things around, wasn't quite enough. It was only 6 or 9 kilometres of the last climb of a 3,000 kilometre race that I came to the end of my fuel. No matter how hard you train, no matter what other races you do, one-day races, mountain bike races, road races, it doesn't condition you for that level of fatigue. So you go there and you don't realise how tired you were, and that's what, for me, what was my problem was I'd never been in a state of fatigue like that, and I didn't know if my body was completely exhausted or it was just normal. And it turns out I was completely exhausted. As a sporting experience, it was fantastic. And as a chance of winning a Giro, it was a good opportunity lost.
Cadel finishes 41st that day. The Tour lost, but an enormous amount of respect won. A young rookie rider carrying his team on his shoulders who refuses to submit, instead pushing himself beyond his physical limits and into a hell he's never experienced before. That in itself shows that Cadel Evans has what it takes to become a world-class Grand Tour rider.
It's such a tactical sport, road cycling. How long did it take you to get a handle on that?
Yeah, there's so many different aspects and so many different situations, and how the other riders react that dictate the outcome of the race. You're still pedaling a bike, but you have to learn also your whole new group of competitors who you're racing against, their strengths, their weaknesses, when they're at their weaknesses, when they're at their strengths, and so on. And that took a while to learn.
Was it more frustrating or challenging along the way, or a bit of both?
Sometimes it was frustrating being at a high level with a base of fitness and things that you come from mountain biking, and then sometimes for what seemed like a simple mistake to make you lose a race. But also on the other side of things, everything was new. It was a whole new fresh environment. It was a whole new motivation, and at 34 now I'm still enthusiastic and I love it, because really I've only been in the sport for not even 10 years now.
Cadel's remarkable debut at the 2002 Giro has drastically accelerated his learning curve and the expectations placed upon him. But his natural talent and intense work ethic see him rise rapidly through the ranks. And by 2005, he's ready to tackle the sport's holy grail, the famed Tour de France, which he's been eyeing off since his teenage years.
A good friend of mine who was crazy about the Tour, but his family didn't have a television, so he'd come around to my house every day to watch it on TV at my house. And of course I started watching, Indurain, Le Mans, this is pretty good. I think it was my mum who asked me shortly after, what would you like to do as a cyclist? And I remember answering it. I was deep in mountain biking, I think I'd like to ride the Tour de France. 13 years later that I started my first Tour de France. And on the Tour you can't believe how people are. They're all just crazy about the whole race and the whole ambience that creates. Everything around it is kind of, to me, it's a bit of a distraction from the race, and I sort of like, can't we just focus on racing our bike and enjoy racing our bikes as well as we can?
Has it been frustrating over the years that people don't just kind of, not leave you to your own devices exactly, but don't necessarily have a empathy for the riders and what they're going through and the gruelling nature of it, that those little 5-second sound bites when a rider might turn around and seem a bit snappy, it's because they've just ridden 300 kilometres and they're hurting and they're sore and they're tired and they're frustrated, yet people will form an opinion of, gee, Cadel Evans seems like a grumpy bloke, even though they've never met you.
That's, you're the kind of guy, you're the kind of journalist I like to speak to at the Tour, because maybe you understand that. It's everyone has a job to do at the Tour, and my job as a rider is, first of all, to ride a good Tour. You cross the finish line, and the moment there, people expect you to be coherent for one, and available. And what do you mean you're not talking to us? We're TV, we need this. Your head's spinning, and you don't know even you can't even contemplate what's just happened in the race and what's going to happen tomorrow, and you're getting all these questions. It takes a bit of getting used to, that's for sure.
Do you feel you have been misunderstood over the years because of that?
Certainly. It's been difficult to manage sometimes, the attention and things that come to, and yeah, people base their opinion on you and they see you for 2 seconds. Sometimes I've even been provoked. I was injured at the Tour and trying to ride to the start line, and people see you've got a blood patch on your pants, so they stick their thumb in your gauze or something that you've got under your shorts. All I want to do is go to the start line and not get in pain. My reaction hasn't always been the most diplomatic, that's for sure, and yeah, that's something that you have to get used to and adjust to. And sometimes, yeah, for that reason I like to just try and focus on racing my bike.
And it's a strategy that has clearly worked for the Aussie at Le Tour. Cadel finishing an impressive 8th on debut in 2005 and then 4th in 2006. He arrives at the 2007 Tour as the most consistent rider in pro cycling, and enhances that reputation with 3 weeks of smart, solid Grand Tour riding. Cadel riding into Australia's public consciousness in the process, finishing just 23 seconds behind Spain's Alberto Contador to become the first Aussie to podium at Le Tour.
23 seconds is kind of frustrating, but at the moment you do what you can, and I came from, I think it was 1:53 behind to 23 seconds to win. I needed a couple more seconds to win, but didn't quite make it, but in the end it was sort of 99.9% of what I had.
Cadel has become one of cycling's biggest stars, claiming the 2007 season-long Pro Tour title to become the #1 ranked rider in the world. Expectations are higher when he arrives at the start line for the 2008 Tour de France, and entering stage 9, Cadel is well placed, sitting 2nd overall. But when a Spanish rider falls immediately in front of Cadel midway through the stage, there's nowhere for the Aussie to go. He lands hard, incurring serious ligament damage in his shoulder and deep bruising across his back and down his left side.
I was injured and having a tough time, but I was there close to the win, so of course I'm turning myself inside out, still trying to win the Tour de France, but I wasn't in physically the best shape, and Yeah, it was one of the hardest days on a bike in my life.
Once again showing his remarkable mental strength, Cadel climbs back in the saddle, finishes the stage, and 24 hours later holds the yellow jersey as tour leader in an incredibly gutsy performance. However, the injuries will ultimately take their toll.
I was around 85–90%, so I had to find this extra 10 or 15% from somewhere. I didn't have it in my legs, which means you have to find something up here to push yourself a bit more, and that made it, for me, one of the hardest tours, probably the hardest Grand Tour that I've ever ridden.
For the second consecutive year, Cadel finishes within a minute of the Tour winner. 7,000 kilometres, 42 stages, and a total of just 81 seconds between he and 2 Tour de France titles. Then in the 2009 Vuelta, Spain's Great Tour, a puncture and a badly botched repair by neutral race mechanics will cost him 1 minute and 33 seconds. He'll end up finishing 1 minute 32 behind the eventual winner. As mentally tough as Cadel Evans the rider may be, it's enough to leave Cadel Evans the man questioning his destiny.
I always believe that you get back out of the sport where you put into it. When they put me out of the chance for the win of the Vuelta there, for the puncture and everything, I did actually start to question, and I'm just like, man, I don't deserve this, and what more can I do for this sport, for fate to dish that out to me? I was like, what do I do? And Chiara, my wife, had always said to me, un giorno sarebbe giustizia, un giorno sarebbe... One day there will be justice, one day there will be justice.
Ahead on Aussies Abroad, Cadel Evans, justice is served.
I didn't know if I was, in a dream or riding down that final road there. Something that many cyclists can only dream about.
Aussie cyclist Cadel Evans has been agonisingly close to winning all 3 of cycling's Grand Tours. Yet for all his consistency, many in the cycling world are beginning to think of Cadel as the perennial bridesmaid. Good enough to contend, but not quite good enough to win a big one. The puncture fiasco at the 2009 Vuelta has even left Cadel questioning his own misfortune. But there's little time to mope, with the World Championship the very next week in his own backyard, Mendrisio, Switzerland, just a few kilometres from his adopted hometown of Stabio. After 255 kilometres, and with just 7 remaining, it is all or nothing time for Cadel. He takes a deep breath, clicks into a harder gear, and attacks.
Just that one attack there, 7 kilometres from the finish, turned the whole cycling world around for me, and it was behind the scenes a really tough year. In the end, I only had a few people believe in me and help me get through those bad moments. Wife, coach, manager, just a few people on the team who believed in me and stuck by me, and then that was as much a victory for them but also for me. And of course, yeah, when you win that jersey there, everyone believes in you then, but it's in those tough moments where you really need that support, and those people get you through, and they'll remain for me for the rest of my life. People help me get to that victory. That was still the single most incredible sporting experience of my life, and riding those few kilometres down to the finish line on my own. The finish line was about 2.5 kilometres from my base, and nearly every day I'd ridden home from training, I've ridden along that same road. To ride there in front of the whole world's behind you, you've only got the finish line and a rainbow jersey at the end. It was, surreal to say the least.
More than 30 seconds clear, he has ample time for an exuberant celebration, but instead issues a simple tribute, a touch to his heart and a wave to the left, the direction of his home. After 15 years as a professional cyclist, Cadel Evans is finally a world champion.
Now I look back at it and think, oh, geez, I'm glad I stuck it through in all those bad days.
I've seen him so close, particularly in mountain bike races at World Championships, and just missing out, flat tyres, those sorts of things, but that was perfect. It was just perfect.
Like any job, it has its good days and its bad days, but the good days, the highs are very high, but on the bad days, the lows are very low. In those moments there, you're just like wondering, why the hell am I doing this? In the end, yeah, when you have a great day, you win the World Championships, or you win at the Tour, or a Grand Tour, or a big one-day race or something. It's fantastic, and everything falls into place and it just flows.
Shortly after becoming world champion, Cadel shocks the cycling world by leaving the powerful Silence Lotto team for the smaller BMC Racing.
It was all about to have a good team around you for the Tour and be supported. That's important on any level, but also for me a big part of it was being just improving quality of life, because my sport is such a big part of my life, and when you're surrounded by good people, and you can enjoy that much more, and state of mind's greatly improved. So yeah, starting off there in BMC, new environment, new motivation, and whole new environment to be in.
He really is professional, not only with his bike, as well with his environment. So the part which I can play along him, the PR side or the media stuff, he likes to know everything. He takes care about the details, and probably these skills or these habits makes him strong as well on the bike.
How well known is he through Europe?
It's the 10th season as a pro on the road, so they know him. They know him from his past, and like in the Benelux countries, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, he rode for Team Step there. And as well in other countries like Switzerland, France, where as well mountain bike is quite famous and popular. In Italy, he's a star. All over the place, it's Grande Cadel, means hey, the big Cadel is here. So the people, they really know him and they love him.
You ride somewhere like 40,000 kilometres a season. A lot of those are by yourself. What are you thinking about when you're out on the road?
I'm trying to focus on doing good training most of the time, but obviously I think it equates to more than 1,000 hours sitting there pedaling a bike. Sometimes you do get a bit distracted, and you look at people's gardens and the flowers that have come out, or the nice restaurant that you should probably come back to one day, and or the nice view, but the main thing's doing the training and doing it well.
People around you say that you've always had an amazing ability to deal with pain. Do you ignore it, or do you tolerate it better than others?
I think it's something that's inevitable. Sooner or later in life we're going to have to tolerate it, and but I think like anything, you get used to it, you get better at dealing with it, and you you have your little ways of coping with it.
What part does fear play in your sport?
Many aspects, I think. What I notice of, not just in our sport but a lot of sports, one of the biggest driving factors of really successful individuals is fear. Fear of not winning, or fear of losing, or fear of not being the best they can be, or something. And then certainly injuries and crashes and things, but with experience, like training your strength, training aerobic conditioning, training a skill, it's dealing and confronting these things. It's something you learn with experience.
What does it take to be successful in this sport?
Combination of many things, mostly motivation, good people around you, a good team around you, on the road, in the car, the support car, but also in your life as well, because the team aren't always going to be there when you're banged up in hospital or having a real tough moment. Just try and do the best you can, because better than that, what can you do? And then you have to question yourself, well, what's the best I can do? What am I capable of? And that normally for me is how I measure success.
Ahead on Aussies Abroad, Cadel Evans, the road to glory. Cadel's preparation for the 2011 Tour hits a snag when a training crash sidelines him with a knee injury.
I'm a bit worried. Everyone says, oh, you've got time, but I'd like to be able to be training a bit more and training better and more time to recover. Plus, the more training you miss out on, just as soon as you start training, the more risk of re-injuring yourself. So it's a little bit of a test of patience.
It's mid-April, and Cadel Evans has been forced to take 3 weeks out of his schedule to leave the team and rehabilitate a knee injury. For a man as meticulously prepared as Cadel, this unexpected glitch is creating some anxiety. His new daily routine, an early morning trip to the physio near his home in Switzerland.
So Cadel, why Stabio?
I think it's the most Italian city it's in Switzerland, almost Italian eyes, 2 kilometres from the border, but it's yeah, we become quite attached to our little town, and then by chance they had the World Championships here one year, and by chance I won them. That helped.
That helps.
Yeah, that helps. That helps with your foreign residency status.
And of course, your wife is Italian.
Yeah, so she's Italian. So it's we live in Switzerland, but we live at I think it's 1.3 kilometres from the border. So from Italy. So it's kind of bizarre having to take your passport when you go to buy a pizza or an ice cream or go training. But it's yeah, it's a great place to live for a bike rider because it's of the better weather and close to the international airport, good roads, lakes, mountains and everything to train on. But you're in Switzerland and living in Italy. Everyone likes the sound of living in Italy, and oh, wouldn't that be great? But it's not a very well organised country.
So Switzerland's got all the sort of romance and flair of Italy, but it's a little bit more organised.
Almost, yeah. Switzerland, I think you have the best of both worlds. You have the good organisation of Switzerland, the country, everything works well, but living so close to Italy, you also have all the good food and the good people, and I have my in-laws nearby, and so yeah, it's a mix of the best of both worlds.
So we're going to see your physiotherapist, Cadel. Is this a man that you see often?
Yeah, this is unfortunately of recent time. I've spent a lot of time with this physio. Yeah, the orthopaedic surgeon and the physio, they're great people, but I don't always like to see them because it usually means there's something wrong. 6 days a week we've been coming here in the last 3 weeks, which is a bit unfortunate, but when you need help you really need it, and fortunately I've got some good people around me when I get into trouble.
So it came from a crash?
Yeah, just a stupid crash. I was out training on my mountain bike actually, and it was just a bruised quad at the start, and then we found out the bruising went right through to the bones. It's been nearly 19 days now, which training's been compromised, but that's the way it goes. Sometimes, unfortunately, of course, I've got good people here who can look after me and help me get better soon. With knee injuries, it's just one tiny little thing wrong, and with all the repeated movements, every pedal stroke, if you do 70 pedal strokes a minute, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day, obviously they're a small problem just becomes amplified.
Talk us through your training regime, firstly on the bike, the amount of hours that you clock each week, and then what else do you do away from the bike to keep your body healthy?
The main part of cycling being an aerobic sport is volume of training, and then of course you have all your intensities which you do, and also the duration, but a typical training ride might be 4 or 5 hours. Specific intervals, climbing on the flat of varying intensities, and to give a general idea, a 5-hour ride you might have start training heart rates like 120, 130 beats a minute up to sort of 5-10 minute efforts, which might go up to 180 beats a minute as well. To ride for 5 hours isn't actually hard when you're used to it. To ride hard for 5 hours,
it's amazing what you can get used to.
It's pretty hard. So, that's where your form comes from. Where getting ready for the big races is not just the intensity that you do also on one day, but to do it every day, but also that's recovery from one day to the next becomes more and more important, and that's where you have to look to other parts of your training like massage and good recovery, and just a good night's sleep is actually a little bit underrated in sport these days, but actually one of the most important aspects is just good quality rest. And then I work a little bit with the physiotherapists and strength training and so on, and that's always for injury prevention and so on. So that takes up a little bit of time, but certainly it's the hours on the bike. 30 hours on the bikes, that's a big week of training.
Do you get sore? Or is your body just so used to churning out the miles?
Your body normally gets pretty used to it. You get tired, your backside often gets a bit sore. But the main thing is just the fatigue, and also it's raining or something. Go outside 5 hours and do all the climbs or something. It's mentally it requires a good bit of motivation, but I have my goals and my program and the goals to work towards, and program the training and everything around that, and try and fit everything in day to day, week to week, and to arrive at the specific events as best as you can. And every year you plan it all out, and then you get injured or something, and you have to remake it. Not every year, but this year we found what we're finding. Me, because I have so many years already in my legs, so it's actually taking less and less training to become better, which is kind of good because I can, on a little bit of training, I can race at a high level. Less training that you do at the start of the year is more energy you've got for the races at the end of the year, so you have to use that to your advantage.
So part of the overall puzzle of winning something like the Tour de France is all the work that goes into leading up to the starting line. It's not just what you see in the race itself, it's the months of preparation ahead of it.
Certainly you want to arrive there at your best level, but it's not like you're going to be at your very best for 3 weeks, but you just want to be at your very, very best for the last 10 days.
Does winning the Tour de France now mean more or less to you after you won the World Championship?
I'll wait and see how the outcome of the tour goes, but certainly 1 or 2 more tours. I think even 2 is not unrealistic with the way things have gone. My age, I'm getting old. They tell me I'm too old to win the tour. I don't believe them.
They told you you're too old to win the World Championship as well.
Yeah, they've told me a lot of things that I wouldn't be able to do in my career as a cyclist that I didn't believe. Certainly to give everything and see where it goes, and I certainly hope that please just 1 tour and let the stars align for me instead of someone else, please.
Cadel's determination to do everything right in his rehabilitation pays off when he returns to racing by winning the Tour de Romandie. He will once again arrive in France as one of the Tour favourites, but can he finally convert favouritism into victory?
Everything we could have done, we had done. We ticked all the boxes. You know, we'd really prepared for it well, and we'd had hiccups and interruptions all along the way. But on the start line, I was like, okay, let's see what we can do.
The most noticeable thing about the opening week of the 2011 Tour de France is BMC's permanent positioning at the front of the peloton. Led by American veteran George Hincapie, the team is working hard each day to ensure their lead man, Cadel Evans, is safe and secure at the head of the pack.
It was an interesting tour from day one, very competitive. You know, Cadel was second on the first stage, second on the second stage. He won his stage a couple of days later, and it was just boom, 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 boom all the way through.
A lot of people criticize us in the first week for doing too much work. But if it meant Cadel didn't crash, people started understanding why we were always at the front, why we were always together. A lot of people did not like to see that, but we're not out there to make friends. We want to try to win the Tour de France, and that means staying together.
The guys were, I called them the dream team from about day 3. Afterwards, people started to say, well, that's a pretty good team, that's a pretty good team. They were just really, they were incredible, and I keep saying it, but it's just the way it is. They were incredible, they set me up in the perfect position.
Every day that I spoke with him, he was always quiet and happy, and I never spoke to him one day when he was nervous. He was really quiet, having a good time with the team, and everything was planned, everything was ready. We
had a good time, even from the beginning when people were crashing and lots of stress. At the end of the stages, we'd laugh and joke, and that's important in a race like the Tour de France. It's so hard mentally and physically that once you're not racing, you can put your mind on something else and really just try to enjoy the people that you're with.
Every day we had a careful plan to follow, and every day our plan kept working, so we just stuck to the same plan and kept at it, and not all the crashes were behind us. Some were in front, some were beside, some were very close, and so on. But it was really, limited our risks wherever it was possible. We had a plan and we stuck to it.
And BMC's aggressive plan is working perfectly. Cadel successfully navigating the expected chaos of the opening 2.5 weeks to be squarely in contention entering the final few days of the tour. He trails race leader Thomas Voeckler by 1 minute and 18 seconds, entering one of the tour's most crucial days, stage 18, the legendary lung-busting climb to the highest stage finish in race history at Galibier. With 60 kilometres to ride, Andy Schleck makes a successful breakaway. Cadel frustrated by the reluctance of the yellow jersey group to join him in a concerted chase. With 10 kilometres remaining, he trails Andy by more than 4 minutes. His tour dream suddenly in grave danger. So Cadel takes it upon himself to lift the tempo and close that gap to Schleck.
There are a couple of occasions on those days where just for a moment it was like, oh no, don't tell me it's not slipping away. Did you have any of those feelings when someone made a move on you, you had the bike problem and you fell behind, you had to catch that time up?
A lot of those moments, and not just those that you saw on TV. There was a lot of those moments, but you know, stay calm, get on with the job, do what we have to do.
Andy and Frank did everything they could do, if you like, to make Cadel look the best bike rider in the race, because they attacked him all of the time when they could. They followed every piece of drama on that chase through the valleys of Cadel to try and get back up to Andy Schleck before the climb of Alpe d'Huez.
Nearly 20 years I've been racing a bike, and the stage to Galibier where Andy Schleck was in front, I think I put nearly all 20 years of experience into that last 10 kilometres there.
It was a terrific day of bike racing, and the world appreciated. You know, the viewing figures around the world hit record heights, not just in the English-speaking nations. This was a tour which gripped the imagination.
Somehow Cadel musters the energy and the will to pursue Andy Schleck to the summit of the Galibier, halving the gap and reducing the overall damage. In 10 kilometres of agonising climb, Cadel Evans has kept his Tour de France chances alive for at least another day.
The fact of the matter is when Schleck went away and alone, it was really Cadel that saved the race, not just for himself, but for the rest of the riders. They stayed on his wheel as long as they could. And in the end, he limited the damage. Again, every day was about limiting damage and controlling situations. And, you know, sometimes the team can do that, but at certain moments it's up to Cadel, right? It's up to him to do it. So nobody else can do that for him.
Andy Schleck's bold and brilliant ride has slashed Thomas Voeckler's lead to just 15 seconds, with Cadel 1 minute 12 seconds back. The following day, stage 19, sees the field tackle a short but testing ride to Alpe d'Huez, punctuated by 3 steep climbs tailor-made for attacking. With only the individual time trial to follow, Andy Schleck realises that this is the day he has to break the Australian, given Cadel is the superior time trialer of the pair. 3-time Tour winner Alberto Contador attacks just 15 kilometres in, and Andy Schleck takes off after him. But Cadel has come to a screeching halt at the critical moment, a mechanical problem with his rear wheel necessitating a bike change and costing him the best part of 2 minutes as Schleck accelerates away into the distance. Are the cycling gods about to strike Cadel Evans down once again?
So in those situations when things are potentially going bad for you, it's obviously important that you're spending every ounce of energy into the pedals as opposed to stressing and worrying about what might or might not happen.
Yeah, you only have a certain amount of energy, and my thing at the Tour is if you can get all of that energy onto the results board, particularly in the overall of the race, that's how I judge how good race or not.
Despite feeling fatigued from the previous day's exertion, Cadel sets off in pursuit of Andy Schleck. The 2011 Tour de France could well be decided in the next hour of racing.
Unless you race the Tour de France and you know what it takes to win a Tour de France, you know, it really takes a phenomenal, you know, superhuman athlete. And sure, myself and the rest of the pro peloton, we're great athletes. You know, we do above and beyond what is asked from our bodies. We take it above the limit. But someone like Cadel, you know, is a special, you know, once in a 100-year kind of type of rider.
There's half a dozen riders that can do what Cadel can do in the mountains, and so when he's there, you know, sometimes he has to do these things himself, and he did it that day.
Cadel ultimately leaves his teammates behind as his relentless effort steadily closes the gap, and he eventually catches and passes Schleck. For the second consecutive day, Cadel Evans has defied the odds and defied the cycling gods, hauling back another potentially crippling deficit to keep his Tour dream alive. Schleck has taken over the race lead and holds a 57-second advantage over Cadel entering the final competitive stage, the individual time trial. History shows the Australian to be a significantly faster time trialer. But after 2 gruelling days of solo chasing, how much does 34-year-old Cadel Evans have left in his legs?
Time trials are a funny thing, and you don't know in your own mind how well you're going to ride a time trial till you're about a kilometre into it. Then the body tells you, I'm up for this, or I'm not going to do it.
It really came down to the wire. Even though we knew Cadel had a better time trial than his competitors, you never know what's going to happen. And the days before that, Cadel had to do a lot of work. So it was exciting.
All those years of hard work, all those hundreds of thousands of miles, or that pain, injury and sacrifice? For Cadel Evans, it all comes down to 55 pressure-packed minutes on the streets of Grenoble. That's next, as our Aussies Abroad Cadel Evans special continues. The cycling world holds its collective breath, awaiting one of the most gripping finishes to a Tour de France in history. 3 weeks of racing has come down to a 42.5 kilometre battle between two of the world's best riders. Australia's Cadel Evans, who finished second in the 2007 and 2008 Tours, versus Luxembourg's Andy Schleck, who finished second in 2009 and 2010. Half a world away in Australia, the clock has ticked past 1 a.m. Yet an entire nation is glued to their TV sets, nervously hoping and praying that their man can finally fulfil his lifelong dream. Yet the man himself is remarkably composed.
I sat in the back of the bus, listened to Paul Kelly, I think, on the headphones, and sat, waited, and a bit of, just watching the weather conditions, seeing what's happening, changing equipment in the last leading up to about the last hour, hour and a half, and just finalising the last few details, and then got my bike, did my warm-up.
He was wanting to win the Tour, and he was wanting you to realise he was going to win the Tour. And when he left the start house in that time trial with 2 days to go, boy. And for Andy Schleck, you could see he wasn't up for it, because he knew he was up against a totally inspired Cadel Evans. And we could see by the body language of Cadel when he dropped down that little start ramp, this guy was on fire.
I was already in Paris, and I was in my bedroom of the hotel where I was gonna stay with the team, and I was with another Chiara, Ivan Santaromita's girlfriend, and we were watching the time trial together. And I remember I was trying to do a math of how many seconds he needed to get a yellow jersey.
Cadel starts 2 riders ahead of Andy Schleck, who holds a 57-second advantage. The Aussie keen to shift the pressure squarely onto his rival with a simple strategy.
Go out fast, do the middle section fast.
And finish fast.
Finish, if possible, even faster.
The early splits show Cadel carving huge chunks out of Andy's lead.
I know I kept on calling his coach and say, "Oh, you're sure? You're sure?" And he said, "Yeah, don't worry. Yes, it's going good."
It was probably the most exciting tour I've ever done. It came down the wire. We were all on the bus watching the time trial, screaming and yelling, and it was very emotional.
About 5k to go, the enthusiasm and the the resonance of the roar of the crowd was sort of what said, I think this is going pretty well here. John Lelang, the sports director, stopped giving me time checks for the stage. I thought, this is something. But then, the last 5k coming into the finish there, just the depth of the resonance of the cheers that I was getting coming into the final sort of said everything. And then from then onwards, didn't feel like my feet were touching the ground.
Everybody's always asked me over the 39 tours I've reported which one's my favourite. It's always been 1989, and that was when Le Monde turned the tables on Laurent Fignon in a time trial. Now we could go back to 2011 because it was virtually a déjà vu. That was where Cadel Evans turned the table on Andy Schleck. It wasn't a question of was he going to win, it was a question of by how much was he going to win.
Inspired by a lifetime of coming close and falling short, Cadel rides the time trial of his life, rocketing through the course to post the second fastest time of the day, some 2 minutes and 31 seconds quicker than Andy Schleck, to seize the yellow jersey by 1 minute 34. With only the parade ride into Paris remaining, Cadel Evans has effectively won the 2011 Tour de France.
Standing up on the podium on the Champs-Élysées, it's not something I'd ever given a great deal of thought to, but...
Hadn't you really? Hadn't thought about it?
No, it's not something I think about that often, actually. I'm sort of focused on the process more than the outcome, because to get the outcome, you've got to do the process. And
but even not when the race is on, but even when you're dreaming about winning the Tour de France as a kid, or when you're away from the race, you don't think about winning.
No, I think about riding a good race. I focus on the process more than the outcome, which is probably a bit of a pity because maybe I don't appreciate it as much as I could do. But standing on the Champs-Élysées there, and there are lots of Australian flags, and Tina Arena coming up, sings the national anthem. She winked at me, and when it comes up and she starts singing the national anthem, it's, I'll never have a sporting experience like that again.
That was wonderful. You know, a lot of emotions come to bear at that time because, you know, I knew the kind of efforts that Cadel had put into winning the Tour, and so I felt very good for Cadel, Chiara, his family. I felt great for the team because they had worked really hard, and for our sponsor. You know, Andy Reese really put a lot of faith in this project and in me and in Cadel to get the job done. It was a moment for him to enjoy, and I think that, you know, the music, the national anthem for Australia, you know, the ceremony itself was very moving. It was a great moment for Cadel, a great moment for the BMC team.
It's the people that are really, really close to you, who've been alongside you for 10 or 20 years or your whole life, that it's only those people that can really understand and comprehend how much work someone like me puts into something like winning the Tour. They were just like, I'm so happy for you that it came out well for you. Aldo Sassi received the bouquet of yellow flowers from the podium on his grave the day I got home, and and Damien Grundy got the first yellow jersey. It's those people as a sports person that help you, that point you in the right direction and help you along. Damien Grundy, when I turned up as a 14-year-old at his bike shop, oh, I want to be a bike rider, can you help me?
I can only imagine there's a combination of a whole heap of different emotions: satisfaction, jubilation, relief. What's the overwhelming one?
Satisfaction, I think. A little bit relief, but mostly satisfaction of a job well done.
What did you expect when you got off the plane in Australia?
I really didn't know what to expect. I've been just surprised that, and really, how can I say it? I was honoured that my results and my efforts are so well appreciated. And really honoured that people have appreciate what I've put into it, and I've also enjoyed that.
You really wanted to be in Australia after the tour and to thank all the fans and seeing all of those people turning up in Federation Square and St Kilda Road. It was really breathtaking.
I know that you've said to me before that sometimes you don't understand the fuss. You know, you're just a guy riding his bike. Why is everybody so preoccupied with it? More than ever now, I suppose.
Quite literally, I'm really just riding my bike, and there's all this stuff going on around me, and most of it I enjoy. Some of it's like, wait, come on, just stay calm, please. You know, I want to, be able to get off the Champs-Élysées with both my arms attached. I don't want to lose them to some excited fan who's going to take them home for a souvenir. But that's what's got me to where I am now, and that's what's going to continue driving me in the future.
Your coach Aldo Sassi said to you that if you can win the Tour, you can be a once-in-a-generation rider. Do you feel some sort of sense of contentment or satisfaction, or now you've tasted it, you want more?
As a person, no, I feel exactly the same. Like for the Worlds, a lot of people said about me that, oh, the Worlds changed me. I was a different rider then. But the thing for me for the Worlds is I stayed exactly the same, but everyone around you changes, and that's sometimes it's not real healthy, to be honest, at a psychological level. And for me, it's winning the Worlds or winning the Tour. For me, it was a stamp of approval for the rider I am, my commitment that I've given to the sport, and a prize for the hard work that I've put in.
Have you had any time to think about what this will mean in terms of the longevity of your career?
I don't think it'll change a lot, actually. I already had a pretty ambitious plan in my mind, and I don't know if Chiara will let me go any longer than those ambitions, so it'll probably stay around about the same.
We said before the race, what would winning the Tour in 2011 mean to Cadel? And you said, I'm not exactly sure. Do you know what the answer is now?
I'm not exactly sure. That's about the same answer. Cadel Evans winning the Tour de France in 2011, I'm still kind of coming to terms with that myself, coming to terms with that phrase. Compliments to all my teammates and everyone who helped me. Thank you as well to everyone who helped me along the way. We'll come back next year and try and repeat.
How are you going to maintain the hunger?
Maintain the hunger? It's not a problem for me. I love riding my bike. I'm really appreciative of this job. I'm just very happy to have the opportunity to make a profession of what was a passion, what was a hobby, and my main thing is when I retire, I just want to be able to say, look, I gave it everything I could. I lost a lot of races. I won some races, but I gave it everything I could, and I don't want to have any regrets that should I have trained harder, should I race longer, or whatever. I just want to have any regrets like that when I retire, and so I'll just keep following this line. I don't know what people will think of me. Good and bad things, I guess. I'd like to be remembered as a rider who, gave his best to his sport, but also to his team and as a professional. I hope I'm remembered as a cyclist who worked hard, was professional, gave his all, gave his best, helping the sport along and developing in the right direction. That sport's brought me so many great experiences, travel, meeting people, living, learning about different cultures, and the people I've met along the way and the experiences I've had, the places I've seen, and it's been just an incredible ride.
Mate, congratulations. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you very much.